life is small things, and this is my biggest point more than any. A lot of life, most of life, is small things. 2 verses in Zechariah. Do not despise these small beginnings. This is when they had, after the Jewish people were taken captive and they came back and they started to rebuild the temple, and some people started crying, this is nothing like the old temple. He said, don't despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. If it's a step in the right direction to do the right thing and worshiping Him, God is still happy, even if it's a small work. And in Luke, Jesus said, if you are faithful in little things, you will be faithful in large ones. I think the converse is true. If you're not faithful in little things, we can't trust you with the big things. We gain trust by seeing you faithful in the little things. And when you do the little things, then there'll be opportunities for bigger things. Because you proved you can be trusted in little things. Let's look at 5 small things, small tasks. Now, Jesus was not only a servant, He was a servant leader. I mean, He preached the truth. He stood up to what was wrong. He died on the cross. He was a brave, but He was also serving. Remember, He was the one who was willing to go and talk to lepers when nobody could. He was the one who would take children and said, no, you let those kids come here. He was the one who lifted up women when a lot of people would not do that. He was the one who cooked breakfast for the disciples when they were out fishing. He was the one who washed the disciples' feet and said, I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. Everybody here should be willing to wash anybody else's feet that is here today. Unless we think we're better than Jesus. And so small tasks. If you bend over to pick up something that's trash, it's a small task. If you just let somebody else go first and hold the door for them. If you say a kind word or a thank you, well, thank you. Small tasks is what life is made of. Little things, and are you faithful in those little things that you should be doing and in helping others and speaking up for Jesus? So quit looking for big opportunities. Woo, boy, if I ever get the big, boy, I'm going to wash them out of smoke. Look for the little ones and do them. And small numbers. Jonathan told his armor bearer, Jonathan the son of Saul, before a battle, perhaps the Lord will help us. For nothing can hinder the Lord. He can win a battle whether he has many warriors or he has a few. Matter of fact, we saw sometime with Gideon, he'd rather have a few to show his power. Now, I'm not saying to talk about churches. I'm against larger churches. I'm for all churches preaching the gospel. Small, big, large. If they're preaching about Jesus and standing for the truth, hallelujah, I'm on your side. And I'm praying for you. But I am saying it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be mean. It can be small. All God uses all sizes. And He uses small people. Now, what do I mean by small people? I don't mean you have to be short or that you have to be sort of mean small. You don't have to be popular or rich or famous or important. Remember, dear brothers and sisters, that few of you, he's talking to the Corinthian church, few of you were wise in the world's eyes or powerful or wealthy when God called you. He didn't call you because you were somebody. And He uses a lot of nobodies. And I mean nobody in the sense not that you're important. I mean nobody in the sense most people don't know who you are. God knows who you are, and that's what matters. And God can do something with small people, with people who are not have a lot of money. Now He can use people who have money too if they'll let Him. But you don't have to be that way. God can use small people. He can use small gifts. When 5,000 people or more really needed lunch, there's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that with this huge crowd? Well, of course, that was the boy who gave his lunch. And then Jesus said another time at the temple, he saw a disciple said, "I'll tell you the truth, this poor widow has given more than all when she gave her 2 small coins." Now, the point is good. I can give 2 pennies, I'm all right. No, the point is both of them gave everything. They gave his whole lunch and all she had. Now, you don't have to give everything, but you can give what you can give, and God notices and can use that. He even uses small gifts. Don't try to get as small as we can get it, but realize even if I can only give a small gift, God can use that and do something great with it. Just like Sandy said. She was preaching my message right down the line there. Right? She didn't even know it. That a bunch of us gave a little bit for boxes, and look what God did with it. We gave a little bit for the conferences, and we're going to do that again. And look what God did with it. So don't just not give anything because, well, God, it's only a little bit. God can do something with what we can give. And a lot of life is made of small moments. Most of the time it's not the TV cameras on you for a big, it's just small moments. You cooked breakfast for somebody. You sent lunch with them. You gave somebody $20 when he needed gas. Well, $100 when he needed gas. Or whatever. You help somebody in small moments. And I want to mention a story about this guy here. This is a picture of him when he was young. His name is James Taylor III. And he was the head of a missions organization, Overseas Mission Fellowship. Was a missionary. He was in China when it went communist. He went to Taiwan the rest of his life as a missionary. And he wrote a story about his family's story. In 1776, yes, the year that the Declaration of Independence, in a small town in England, James Taylor was getting married. He was so overwhelmed with the serious importance of getting married that he became a Christian. He got saved the day of his wedding. His wife doesn't like it too much because she was not a Christian, but later on she came on board, and they both were dedicated Christians who raised their children to follow Jesus. James Taylor's son John Taylor served Jesus. John Taylor had a son named James Taylor who served Jesus. James Taylor had a son named James Hudson Taylor, who some of you know. Hudson Taylor was like the first missionary to China and took the gospel there, which way later on has now sold fruit in millions and millions of Chinese Christians. James Hudson Taylor, who had a son, this guy here, who was a missionary, who had a son, that guy there, who was a missionary, who had a son now, who is serving God. And so what he said, I like this quote, I put it on here. One decision to serve God in the 18th century has influenced my family for 9 generations. One guy on his wedding day says, I need Jesus. And look what it meant. It was a small moment in the world's eyes when I got saved. But it turned out huge in my life and my family. It was a small moment maybe when you said, I do, or I will. Well, what did it mean in the rest of your life? When you made a commitment to really get serious for God. Some small moment. When a guy in North Carolina at a Haynes factory invited my mother to church. And she became a Christian, and then we went to church and we became Christians, and now we got kids who serve God. It was a small moment when he just said, would you like to come to our church? But what we do, the commitments we make, the little things we do for God can just flow out to mean so much in somebody else's life. God uses small things. Little is much when God is in it. So don't quit doing little things for God. You do what you can for God.